Hello, friends. You know we've all been there. We've been hurt by someone we love and blurt out, "You said I'm sorry. What more do you want?" But sometimes words just don't land. I'm here with Dr. Jennifer Thomas. So, first of all, Jennifer, welcome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? And then we'll be talking about 5 apology languages.
Well, Trisha, it's great to be with you. I'm a psychologist and I was in private practice in North Carolina, but I've branched out since I became an author and I'm doing mostly business leadership work and coaching around the country. And in my personal life, I've married, we have 3 kids. 2 are grown. The oldest is married to a lovely young woman, and our youngest just started college. So we're empty nesters.
Oh, how is that like being empty nesters now? Is it taking some getting used to?
It has. I had hoped that I would be more prepared, than I was. After all, my husband and I were married the whole time I was in my doctoral program, which took 6 years, and that was before we had kids, so I thought we could just lean on that and go back to those, sweet days that were like a honeymoon for us. But I found that I'm really attached to this mothering role, and it's
Yeah.
really hard not to have anyone here to take care of in that way. Even though I'm excited for what he's off in college and doing, it that's like something in my mind that I should understand, but my heart doesn't feel like it has caught up to the new program quite yet.
Yeah, and I hear that a lot. My youngest is 14. Our oldest is 36. We have 10.
Wow.
So I've been parenting a very long time. So, right now I'm like, it'll be so nice to not have kids, but I know when the time comes, it'll be different. And we have 10 kids. Now we have in-law, daughter-in-law, son-in-laws. We have grandkids. There's a lot of people who get each other upset, and
Mhm.
apology is a big thing. So as soon as I saw your book, I'm like, we need this. And I've been listening to it on audio, and there's so many things that are wonderful. But I would just love to hear what gave you the desire to write this book.
Yeah, so many of your listeners are probably familiar with The Five Love Languages by my co author, Gary Chapman. And
Yes.
then when they hear the 5 apology languages, it's like, wait a minute, how did this come about? And it actually came out of my own marriage. My husband's name is JT. We had been married for like 15 years. And one night we were having a disagreement, not a huge deal. It was kind of typical Friday night. We're tired. He's hangry, kind of thing. And the topic, I don't even really remember what it was, but I remember that I made a mistake and I kind of quickly said, "Oh, I'm sorry," but it was too flippant. And then I tried to move
Mm.
on and I realized, uh-oh, JT's not moving on. And this is going to like ruin the whole tone of our Friday evening. And so I asked him what was wrong. And he said, "I just wish you would apologize for your mistake." And I was kind of taken aback. I said what most of us would, which is, "But I did apologize." It
Right.
was as if he hadn't heard it at all. And so I might have normally gotten offended, but that day, luckily, I got curious and I said, "Well, I did say I'm sorry. What were you waiting to hear?" And I like to invite listeners to pause now and think about what he might have been waiting for, because the chances are that your answer will reflect your own apology language. And
Mm.
he knew right away. JT said, I wanted you to say you were wrong, which means he wanted me to accept responsibility. And so I said, okay, well, to me, they're kind of similar, and I was wrong. And it really worked. It was such a difference after that. And so I thought, wow, I need to write this down because this guy didn't come with any kind of an instruction manual, but this really matters to him. And I wish I had known this earlier. And so I went on to share it with people as I was counseling them. And he and I were volunteers in a premarital ministry in our church at that time. And so we shared it with them right away and said, you probably know each other's love languages by now, but if you haven't had an argument yet, you certainly will on your wedding day. So you should go ahead and figure out what are those magic words that they're going to need to hear from you when you make a mistake. And I couldn't get the idea out of my head. It stuck with me, and I knew Gary Chapman a bit through networking, and I ended up taking the idea to him eventually, and he really resonated with it. And he said, this is interesting, and I think maybe if you want to, we could write a book together about it. So we did that, and we coined the term 5 apology languages for the different ways that people go about saying, my bad.
Yeah, and so good. So the different ones are regret, responsibility, restitution, change, and requesting forgiveness. As I'm listening, I'm like, I guess they are all separate. And then, well, I'm only like a third of the way through the book, so I'm still going through it. And then I started thinking of my 10 children, and some seem fine when I apologize. Some hold on to it. So then I'm thinking I need to dig deeper because I'm probably not apologizing in the way that they need me to.
Mm.
And it could probably build a relationship because, they hold on to things. And I just think, I don't know what I'm going to do with this child. And I feel like the wall's coming up. So I love that it takes us to these places where we can stop and think about it, maybe
Mhm.
consider people in our lives and realize that maybe even though we're saying the words that we think are fine, it's not saying it in the way that they really appreciate or can hear it, or it really touches their heart.
Yeah, Trisha, you hit the nail on the head, which is that we're missing it with each other. And that reminded me so much of the love languages, where we could be knocking ourselves out, trying to do it right, and then we check it off our list and we move on, perhaps not realizing that that's not going to fill their love tank because I didn't say it in their love language. And I was just struck by how similar it was in terms of what people need to hear when we make a mistake. And Gary Chapman and I did some research to look at, okay, what are all the things people want to hear? And I promise you, we weren't looking for 5 of them, although, he likes that number.
Yeah.
But that was just a nice coincidence that happened. And some people think of them as 5 steps to a complete apology. If you don't know what someone's primary apology language is, we say that it is best to use all 5 because you're bound to say something that will be music to their ears and that will show them how really sincere you are with your apology.
Yeah. So why don't you just start by explaining these? And I mean, they can be steps, like you said, you're going through the different steps, but explain how we can offer them, I guess, all in an apology and I guess differentiate between them.
Okay. Yeah. So the first thing is if I need to apologize, how do I bring that up? And especially because sometimes time has passed, but we
Mm.
say the best time to apologize is as soon as you realize that you should. So don't put it off. Don't let your relationship problems fester, and certainly don't let years go by without that reconciliation. Be the first one to extend an olive branch of peace. A good phrase that you can use to bring it up is to say, I'd like to circle back to something that happened, something that I said or did that wasn't the way I really wish I had done it. Could I get a redo? Could I bring this up? And then you'll have their attention focused on what you want to talk about. And then I recommend this phrase to lead off an apology, and it's simply to say, I apologize, or I want to apologize to you, or I owe you an apology. This is a good way to lead into it and to let them know that you're not going to start giving them all kinds of excuses, or you're hopefully not going to turn around and blame them. In a way, you're setting the stage for that acceptance of responsibility. And then you can begin with any of the 5 apology languages that you want to. We find in our research that the first 2 cover almost 40, each of them covers about 40% of people. So if you only use the first 2, then you will have hit the primary apology language of 75 or 80% of people.
Wow.
And those 2 are the 2 that I already spoke about, actually. They're saying, I'm sorry, which is just knee jerk reflexive for a lot of us. Many of us over apologize with that one. And then we need to look at that, which we also talk about in the 5 apology languages. And then the second one is saying, I was wrong, or accepting responsibility. It's like if this were a criminal trial, we're basically pleading guilty. And the reason that JT likes that one better is because I can say I'm sorry without accepting responsibility. I can be
Mhm.
sorry something happened to you, but it wasn't my fault at all. And he knows that little loophole. And wanted to know that I really was saying, "No, I was guilty. It was my fault." Um, and and really that need for someone to accept and admit when they're at fault, it comes from God. It's a God-given desire for justice that is in each of us. It's the same desire that also can make us really angry at times. And anger also, there's nothing wrong with having that feeling. It's what we do with it that becomes the problem. But it's actually a good alarm system that is a gift that lets us know, okay, something's wrong here. Something needs to be changed, and we can accept responsibility for it. But here's what happens. Some people will listen to both of those and they'll be perfectly satisfied and they'll feel that we're sincere.
Mhm.
But 20 or 25% of people in our surveys have shown that they will be thinking, you know what? Talk is cheap. I don't think she's completely sincere. If she were sincere, her actions would have shown it. And so for the next two, they're really more about showing through your behavior how sincere you are. The third one is making amends or letting the person know what you're going to do to make it up to them or to make them whole. And that one is easy to confuse with our fourth one. So follow me on this. Our fourth one is revising the plan. With this one, we're going to let people know what's going to change going forward.
Mhm.
And so the difference really is that making amends is in the present. I'm going to make you whole or bring you back to where you were when I made this mistake so that in the present moment, you're whole again. And then the fourth one is an action that you're going to take, some guardrails you're going to put in place so that we won't keep having this problem down the road. And then the final apology language, it's only the primary apology language of about 3% of people, but we found that to them it's really important because most likely their parent or their teachers expected it. And what it is they want us to ask for their forgiveness.
Mhm.
And that's going to be especially true if two things are true. One is if it's a serious offense, and two is if it's a repeated offense. If it's just a little thing, they're not going to require it. But boy, if you've really violated their trust, you could say all the other things and you still will be missing it with them. And so, just as with the five love languages, the key is to get out of our own heads and our own habits and our own childhood modeling that we carry and to put ourselves in their shoes and to ask this key question that I really haven't found other people or experts on apologies that are talking about this. And that is, but what did the recipient want to hear?
Mhm.
That's the detective hunt that we want to send people on.
Yeah, and I think that's so good, and I think we may use a mix of these things, but sometimes I love that you said you're gonna start by saying, "I apologize." I'm thinking specifically of one of my kids, and it seems like she will hold on to something for a while, and I will say, like, say I somehow embarrassed her by something I said,
Easy to
and
do.
easy to pre yeah, she's 15. Easy to do. And I'll
Right.
say, "You're right. I shouldn't do that. I won't do that again. I'll remember you don't like that." So I'm doing responsibility, restitution, and change. And then later I'll be like, "What's going on?" "Well, you never apologized." And I
Oh,
and I
just
felt
like my husband.
I feel like I was doing that because 'cause I'm like, "I shouldn't have done that. I will change, and then I will make sure not to do that. Let's go get a coffee and talk about," like, I'm doing all these things, and then she'll like,
Right.
2 days later say, "You never apologized," and I'm like, "I don't know how I could have been better for that." But then I said, "What do you want me to do?" She says, "I want you to say, 'I apologize, and will you forgive me?'" And I'm like, "Oh, I was so a lot I'm doing the
Oh.
middle part, but I wasn't doing that first part of actually saying it, and then, 'Will you forgive me?'" And once I said, "Will you forgive me?" She's like, "Yeah," and then walked off. I'm like, "Wow, I wish I'd have known this 3 days ago, or I wish I would have had this book when, this was coming out." Yeah.
Oh, what a great example. And I love how you were trying everything. You even threw in love languages with the quality time. Let's go
Mhm.
out for coffee. Yeah, but sometimes we just need to ask people what it is. And I'll tell you, before the Five Apology Languages book came out, I thought, oh no, what if some people in my life think, oh, that's the most ironic thing I ever heard, that Jennifer has a book on apologizing because, she owes me an apology. So I sat down my family. We were on a big family vacation. There were like 16 of us. And I said, listen, if this is the strangest or most ironic thing you've ever heard, let me know, because I do want to apologize in the way that you need to hear it. And luckily the conversation went well and I didn't end up regret doing that. And we do have an apology language profile and we keep it free on the websites, and it's also in the back of the book, so that people can there are a couple things you can do. You can either have the people who you see every day, whether it's at work or at home, take the questionnaire, or you can simply ask a couple of questions. And this is something easy you can do today. You can say, look, I realize I didn't know what you need to hear when you hear a good apology, what's included. And then the opposite, when you hear a really bad apology, what's missing. And chances are that
Mm.
their answer is going to let you know both what their primary apology language is, and also, as with the love languages, many of us have a secondary language that is good to also be aware of.
Yeah, and I love that because I was thinking, I'm trying to build closeness. I'm trying to do all these things, but to her, I had not apologized. But it makes me think of myself, and I think we're thinking of other people, of course, but also like how do we want to be apologized to? And
Mhm.
I kind of want the take responsibility. So even if someone says, I apologize for doing that, do you forgive me? I'm like, let's talk about why you did it
Mhm.
and how you're not going to do this again. It seems like I want that like further conversation to really get past it. And I'm talking about big things, bigger issues where I
Right.
think my husband's upset about me about something, and we're kind of missing each other on that. And so I realized like, oh yeah, I want really people to really take responsibility because it's not just enough to say I apologize. So I'm
Right.
sitting here, my mind's like going crazy thinking about all these different things that have happened.
Yeah, and it's you raise an interesting point where some experts now are beginning to say, it's good to include an explanation with your apology. And that's part of what you said is, I want to know why it happened. But for many of us, that leads into our fourth apology language, if which you'll remember is revising the plan, letting people know what's going to change. And
Hmm.
so we may ask for an explanation as part of that process and to figure out where they got off track. And really, it's about putting those guardrails in place so that it won't keep happening. I know in my own life, in the office especially, this was important to me. When I've scheduled a client, if someone, like maybe in the office back, when we only took phone calls, right? It wasn't by email or text. If they erased it from my schedule or deleted it, but forgot to let me know that that
Mm.
happened, and I come in and I'm expecting to help this client, they can be very sorry and they can say they were wrong, but I only have so much patience. And every office manager I talk to is the same way. They want you to revise the plan and let them know how you're going to prevent this going forward, because we only have so much patience for
Hmm.
people and the mistakes they make, and we'll forgive you a certain number of times, but then we just want it to stop happening.
That's so good. Okay, here's another thing. This is another thing that's again popping in my mind. When I say I have a podcast guest and something came up, and I'll text my assistant and said, "I'm so sorry. I'm at the hospital with a child. Can you please contact this person and tell them I cannot be there and to reschedule?" And then she'll copy me on it, and she'll just say, "I'm so sorry. Trisha was not able to make it today. We need to reschedule." And then I feel like I have to jump in and explain what happened because I don't feel like that's good enough. Because I don't want them to think like I just went to the beach, or like I want them to know that it was like a big thing. And so I
Right.
don't know, like I want to is that taking more responsibility or explaining it more?
Yes.
Because I don't want them to feel like I was just very flippant or I think I'm so uppity I could just cancel at any moment. Yeah, so that has me curious too.
Yes. Well, that's a case in which the explanation can be really helpful, and you intuitively know that, like, oh, that might be easier for them to forgive this inconvenience if they know it was unavoidable, it was serious. That I talk about needing to trust other people's judgment and to
Mhm.
trust that, if they were in your shoes, they would have done the same thing. And so you're kind of helping out by giving the explanation, and that can be helpful. And sometimes people avoid doing it, or it can backfire because if we do it too much, or if the explanation isn't a good one, like it didn't have to do
Right.
with the hospital and they were at the beach, then that can be offensive.
Right.
Yeah, and so we do need to watch that, and sometimes I find simpler is better.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know if you've, had people in your life who maybe you invite them to do something, and, ideally, they would say, "Oh, I'd really like to do that with you, let me check." But if they say, "Oh, let me check my calendar," "Well, I've got, a concert, and then there's, my college team is playing football, and I'll probably wanna watch that. Let me see if I can work it out." Well, they've just told me where I am on their list of
Mhm. And the
priorities,
priorities, yeah.
and I don't really appreciate, that I'm not as high as I think I should be.
Right, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so short and sweet is sometimes the best policy.
Yeah, that's so good. Okay, so, what about if someone is apologizing and you don't feel it is really, yeah, just hitting you where you need it? How can you have this conversation with someone without feeling like you have so much that you need for them, or it's too, like making it like a huge big deal?
Yeah, Gary Chapman and I talk about this. Sometimes someone tries to offer you an apology. It's like when I said to my husband, "I'm sorry," and I try to move on. But he was left thinking, "And give me
Yes.
something more here." That happens to us all the time. And Trisha, why are we just talking about this today? Why are we going through life and we've never talked about
I know,
apology?
I've been married 35 years.
Exactly. Yeah, so, I love that you're shining a light on this and on our work. I call apologies the wallpaper of life. They're all around us, they come up all the time, people over apologize, but we rarely stop and say, "Wait a minute, what do you really want? What shows caring to you?" Because I realize I don't know.
Yeah. So just really explaining to them, or yeah, go into that a little bit deeper. I would love to
Yeah.
hear.
Well, I was thinking about a personal story, but it's not exactly apologies, but it's about confessing to our family members. This could also
Mhm.
work in the workplace when we realize I don't know what to do in this situation. I don't know what you would
Mm.
want. So here's what happened. Almost as soon as we took our youngest to college, we went back and took him out to brunch because I was missing him so much. And he teased us about that. He's like, "You're missing me, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah, 100%." And luckily, it was close enough. It was a drive, not a flight. We took him out.
Mhm.
Well, near the end of the meal, he's slowing down on eating and he's saying, I'm not really feeling very good." And he had already mentioned that he had developed a sore throat. And so we were going to go shopping afterwards, but he ended up saying, "I feel really sick. I don't think I can do that." And I ended up asking him about maybe getting out of our car and walking around the parking lot with me. And it's lucky I did because he vomited in the
Oh,
grass
no.
right out there. And I was frozen. So I've been a mom for like 25, 26 years. But normally, you just leave them in the bathroom and you may even
Yeah.
shut the door for privacy. I did not know what to do. So I stood there for it seemed like forever. And then I eventually decided I would just cross the road. And so I said to him, kind of loudly so he could hear me, I said, "I'm just going to be over there if you need me." And then he came over a second later. We were walking around some more, and I said, "I gotta tell you, I didn't know what to do. Part
Yes.
of me wanted to reach out and rub your back, but part of me wanted to give you privacy. And so tell me so I'll know next time." And he said, "Privacy, mom. I wanted privacy." So that was good. And then I went to my husband later and I said, I realized we haven't had that conversation, just like you're saying,
Right,
Trisha.
yeah.
We haven't had the apology. what do you want conversation? How have we gotten this far? And so my husband agreed privacy, privacy is a good policy. But I think that's an example of how, we think we know what other people want, but until a crisis comes up, we may not realize. And in the middle of a crisis isn't the best time to figure out, I don't know what your primary apology
Mhm.
language is.
Mhm.
I don't know what really counts for you. It makes me think also about some couples I've worked with who were not just missing it with each other, they were actually getting offended by what the other one was doing.
Right.
So, if you can imagine this, there was a wife whose mom had been good at apologies, like you. She had required more than one phrase in an apology. And so, guess what? She grows up, gets married to Bob, and Bob only says one thing in his apology. And so to Bob, that works because it worked for his parents. It was acceptable to his teachers. But you know what she says to him? She says, "Bob, sorry isn't enough."
Mm.
Well, now we've got conflict because he did the thing, but it wasn't the thing for her. And I think it's not uncommon for us to have this conflict and not realize, well, what's this really about? This is really about us having scripts that come from childhood for what makes an effective apology. And here again is why it's so important is because if we don't get that match, if our apologies don't count to them, then the barriers that the offenses create are just going to build up and pretty soon we're going to have a wall. And what
Mhm.
apologies do, if they're spoken in the language of the recipient, is they can bring down that wall and they can open the doorway to forgiveness and to reconciliation. But we're quick to point out that is not guaranteed, right? It creates the chance of forgiveness and the chance of reconciliation, but it's really up to that person and how they're feeling about your sincerity and how they're feeling led to respond.
Yeah, okay, this is so good, and I cannot wait to finish listening to the book. I'm listening to an Audible. I can't wait to have conversations with my 10 kids and all the family members because 'cause I'm thinking like, "Oh, I bet some of them they want more of an apology than I'm getting," which is probably causing a lot of, "You don't understand," or yeah, and, I can see clues that I'm not getting them enough apology, or like my daughter stating it very clearly, "I
Mhm.
apologize. Will you forgive me?" That's what she wanted. She wanted it very extremely clear, and I was just, like, explaining and trying to make amends before I was doing that. So I
Wow,
love this, and I think it's gonna be so helpful for
that's great.
my
And
family.
I think your listeners and I would want to give a shout out to your 15-year-old for being so clear. We call that meta communication when you break out of the conflict and you talk about the conflict. It's like going up to the
Mm,
next level, just like how a meta analysis is analyzing all the studies from above. And that's where we want to get when we have conflict with people. Conflict itself is not bad. It's part of that God-given sense of justice, and it lets us know when we need to push for change. And so the fact that she was able to break out of the conflict and let you know what she needed to hear shows that she has really good communication skills, and those are going to serve her well. And I would give kudos to you too, mom, and your husband probably had some part in this
mhm.
as well, that you've got her on the right track of being able to talk calmly and work through the problems. And that's really our passion, is to help people to be able to resolve those conflicts, and then using the other essential for healthy relationships on top of the five apology languages, then we can use our five love languages to keep our love tank full, or if we're in the workplace, to feel appreciated there, so that our relationships can function successfully. And as we believe, that's really the secret sauce of having joy in life, is having relationships that aren't broken but that function well.
Yeah, and I think this is so good that it can be something, like you were saying, just like we use the love languages, it can be so part of our thinking that it becomes easier to connect with everybody. I'm even thinking, conversations with my husband, there's something going on with one of our kids. I think the love tank is low. I'm going to take them out for coffee. I'm going to get someone on one time. I'm going to tell them how well they're doing in this area or whatever. Because I'm thinking through the love languages, and I think this will be great as we continue. More people read the book. It becomes more of our common conversation that people can refer to. Um, that I think that'll just help every relationship, just like you said, the love languages have helped. I think this can add another layer to our connectedness and the other person feeling loved and appreciated, which is something we all want in our relationships.
Well, amen to that.
I love it. Okay, so let us know, where can we go to get information about you and then information about this book?
Yeah, so my website is drjenthomas.com. It's D like dog, R like red, JEN, Thomas.com. And I do have a free newsletter that comes out every 2 weeks. People can sign up for that if they're interested. And in it, I have practical relationship advice. And I also am on social media. And then my book is available wherever books are sold. And we encourage people to buy it from their local booksellers if
Yes.
possible.
Yes, and I always love to add also, if you can't afford it, ask your library. A lot of libraries
Mm.
where you can ask them to purchase books for you, and then it gets in circulation. And so lots of people
Perfect.
get the message. Yes.
I love that. Thank you, Tricia.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for being here. This is a great conversation. I know this is going to improve our family's relationship. So thank you for all your hard work.
My pleasure. And again, thanks for shining a light on this topic.